वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवं श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं स्वावधूतं परिजनासाहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते सप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर आसादि गौरभक्ता हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
Thank you, Shashwin, for this wonderful Mangalacharan. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, please accept mine. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
We welcome you on this wonderful journey, Srimad Bhagavatam. We are entering the 13th chapter today. We have just ended the 12th chapter, first canto, 12th chapter yesterday. So we hand over to you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you very much. Om Jnana-timirandasya Kalangana Shalakaya Chakshuram Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this evening we're on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, first verse. Dhritarashtra quits home. Sutta Uvacha Vidurastirtha Yatrayam Maitrayar Gatim Natvagadassana Puram Tayapta Vivisitataha. Translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Vidura, one of the prominent figures in the history of the Mahabharata, he was conceived by Vyasadeva in the womb of the maidservant of Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. He is the incarnation of Yamaraj. Being cursed by Manduka Muni, he was to become a Shudra. The story is narrated as follows. Once upon a time, the state police caught some thieves who had concealed themselves in the hermitage of Manduka Muni. The police constables, as usual, arrested all the thieves and Manduka Muni along with them. The magistrate specifically punished the Muni to death by being pierced with a lance. When he was just to be pierced, the news reached the king, and he at once stopped the act on consideration of his being a great Muni. The king personally begged the Muni's pardon for the mistake of his men, and the saint at once went to Yamaraj. who prescribes the destiny of the living beings. Yamaraj, being questioned by the Muni, replied that the Muni in his childhood pierced an ant with a sharpened straw, and for that reason he was put into difficulty. The Muni thought it unwise on the part of Yamaraj that he was punished for his childish innocence, and thus the Muni cursed Yamaraj to become a Shudra, and this Shudra incarnation of Yamaraj was known as Vidura, the Shudra brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu. But this Shudra, son of the Kuru dynasty, was equally treated by Bhishma Dev along with his other nephews. And in due course, Vidura was married with a girl who was also born in the womb of a Sudrani by a Brahmin. Although Vidura did not inherit the property of his father, the brother of Bhishma Dev, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the elder brother of Vidura. Vidura was very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path during the fratricidal war of Kurukshetra. Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu. But Duryodhan did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. This resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya. Om Gyana Timiranda Shaganangana Shalakya Chakshuran Meditamjana Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is a very, very interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, it's interesting for me because I was given the name Vidura, and this was one of the first books I happened to read after I joined the temple, and I was always attracted to the personality of Vidura. So at my initiation, when I did Dandavats and I was given the beads, and I heard your name is Vidura Das, I was like, wow, that's interesting. So Vidura, as my spiritual master used to point out to me, he said, Vidura means wise and intelligent. So, but you're Vidura Das, so you should be the servant of the wise and the servant of the intelligent. Don't think it applies to you. I said, okay, fine. And when he put me in charge of the Gita Nagari press, so many of the books had gone to the printer previously before I was managing the press. They'd gone with so many mistakes, and when you send a book to the press to be printed, if they spot the mistake at that stage and they send it back, it costs a lot of money to rectify. So he said, we should put Vidura in charge of the press because he's a big fault finder. And he'll never let a book go to the press with a mistake in it. So he can use his fault finding propensity in the service of Krishna. So that's how I got the job of looking after the Gita Nagari press. But this whole section, of course, is almost word for word. This section of the Bhagavatam is almost word for word straight out of Mahabharata, and it's a synopsis of the Mahabharata, the whole Mahabharata story. But as we know, the Mahabharata was written for the less intelligent class of men. Just imagine. For women, for Sudras, for the less intelligent class of men. And it's such a complicated story and so much intrigue and politics and philosophy and everything goes on in the Mahabharata. And imagine in the middle of the Mahabharata, of course, we have the recitation of Bhagavad Gita, which Prabhupada says in many lectures, it was spoken to between Krishna and Arjuna. The whole conversation took place over a period of between 30 and 40 minutes. So you can imagine between 30 and 40 minutes, this deep, deep, deep philosophy, which the vast majority of people can't even begin to comprehend, was spoken and taken in by Arjuna in a period of half an hour. And he was a Kshatriya. He wasn't even a Brahmin. He was a Kshatriya. Of course, a friend of Krishna, not a small position, but nonetheless, it just gives an indication of the depth of intelligence of people at that time was just really deep. And we can see how the progress of Kali, it just marches on relentlessly. And we think, with all our inventions, that we're so intelligent. And what has our intelligence led us to? It has brought us to the point where we've polluted the sky, we've polluted the air, we've polluted the waters, we've polluted the rivers, we polluted the oceans, we polluted the land. So this is, and what has all this progress brought us? Nothing, absolutely nothing, but deeper and deeper and deeper anxiety. So there's this last sentence that Prabhupada is saying in the last paragraph. During the fratricidal war of Kurukshetra, Vidura repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu. But Duryodhan did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidura. This resulted in Vidura's leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya. So Vidura, whilst he's a great saintly personality, of that there is no doubt, we have to understand also that he's born in a Kshatriya family. He may be the Sudra son of one of the maidservants, but his father was Vyasadeva, and he was like Dhritarashtra. He was the eyes and the ears of Dhritarashtra, because Dhritarashtra was blind. Dhritarashtra couldn't rule the kingdom without the advice of Vidura. Vidura was the prime minister, Dhritarashtra was the king, and Vidura was his constant advisor. And Dhritarashtra loved Vidura, and Vidura loved Dhritarashtra. It wasn't that they were brothers. So naturally there was that fraternal love that was there. But Vidura was on a much higher level than Dhritarashtra in terms of his spiritual understanding and spiritual intelligence. So whenever Dhritarashtra would favor Duryodhan, of course, Duryodhan would absolutely freak out. He just couldn't handle the idea that although Vidura was giving good advice, Duryodhan couldn't accept it. And we have to understand also, we recall from the Mahabharata, when the Pandavas were exiled to the forest, Duryodhan was running the kingdom, of course, on behalf of his father. But really it was Duryodhan who was calling the shots, because Dhritarashtra was so enamored with his son, Duryodhan and Dusasan. He just did whatever they wanted, even though he knew it was against the laws of Dharma, and it was against all etiquette, everything. Still, he was so enamored with his son, he went along with everything, practically speaking, that he wanted to do. So he never chastised him. And we know when you're growing a tree, if the tree is growing crooked, if you don't straighten it up when it's young, it grows in all directions, and you cannot. Same with a child. You have to guide a child and control a child. Otherwise, when they grow up, they just think everything is perfectly okay. So a push came to a shove, and when Duryodhan was practically speaking at the last legs, Vidura just turned to, just before the battle, Vidura turned to Dhritarashtra in the court. The court is full, Bhishma is there, all the Pandavas are there, everybody is there, and Vidura turns to Dhritarashtra and says, you're maintaining offense personified. Your son is offense personified. So Vidura was a Kshatriya. He wasn't like some meek, saintly person living in a cave. He also knew how to handle a sword, a bow and arrow. He was a leader. He was a king. He was of the Kshatriya blood. So it wasn't like he was some mendicant living up in the Himalayas, in a cave somewhere. He was also a force to be reckoned with. He was the prime minister. It was a very powerful position. So out of frustration, he just said, you're maintaining offense personified, Duryodhan. as your infallible son. Infallible means somebody who can't even make a mistake. In your mind, he can't make any mistake. This is a quote from the Bhagavatam. But he is envious of Lord Krishna. So this was, although a great leader in all this, Duryodhana was, all sacrifices were going on. Dharma was being looking at. The temples were going on. The Brahmins were taken care of. The cows were protected. All these things were going on. But he was envious of Lord Krishna. And he was envious of Krishna's relationship with the Pandavas. And if you become envious of a devotee, what to speak of being envious of the Supreme Lord, Duryodhana wanted to have Krishna arrested. When Krishna came as the peacemaker, he finally, on the pleadings of Yudhisthira begged Krishna, please go and ask them for just 5 villages, and please be the peacemaker. We will accept it. We can't live without ruling something. We need to have at least 5 villages. So Krishna went along, and Duryodhana said, not the famous quotation, not even as much land as will fit on the head of a pin. So then that's when Vidura said, there's no hope. This is going to be, and like Balaram, he didn't want to be involved in the war. He could see, Trikala Gyan, he could see, he was a pure devotee. He could say, this is what this is all going to lead to. Krishna has failed in the negotiations to bring about peace. So what hope is there? So because you are thus maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. He's telling his brother, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. Because of your idea about your son being infallible. Yes, he's offense personified. Apart from your idea that he's infallible, he's absolutely the opposite, completely. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family. This is in front of the court. So, of course, Duryodhana, he is sitting there, trying to contain his temper, and he just flips. And so hearing these words, Duryodhana was swollen with anger. And he said to Vidura, to the court, who asked him to come here, this son of a kept mistress? He is so crooked that he spies in the interest of the enemy against those on whose support he has grown up. Toss him out of the palace immediately and leave him with only his breath. So he wanted to whip Vidura. And this is after rejecting Krishna. Now he wants to whip Vidura within an inch of his life, it's described in the Mahabharata. So Vidura, he saw this is too much. So Vidura placed his bow on the door and quit his brother's palace. Vidura had his own bow and arrow. He was not sorry because he considered the acts of the Lord's external energy, which is fully under the control of the Supreme Lord, to be supreme. So he could see this. What's the point? This is the will of the Lord, and he's going to bring all these warriors, the Kshatriyas, together. There's going to be a huge battle. Millions are going to die, and it's the arrangement of the Lord. I come to protect the devotees and to annihilate the miscreants. This is what Krishna says in the Gita, and it's inevitable. These things they have to happen. Just like I was hearing from Srila Prabhupada a few days ago. We're coming up to Gaur Purnim next week, and of course, we're preparing for that, and there's going to be so many activities, festivities, and everything. But Prabhupada was talking about Advaitacharya, how Advaitacharya could see how much Kali was progressing in his endeavors to bring everybody away from the Supreme Lord, bring everybody away from Krishna. And because of the mercy of Advaitacharya pleading with the Lord to Advent, Lord Chaitanya appeared. By the mercy of the devotee, the Lord appears. By the mercy of the devotee, we get Krishna. By the mercy of Krishna, we get Guru. This is the system. This is how it works. We have to plead, we have to beg for the mercy of the Lord. And by hook or by crook, we have to get a hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and the lotus feet of the Guru. And how does it happen? There's a lovely quote from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Please, those of you who are Bengali speakers, please just ignore my pronunciation. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadai Kabunai Shravanadi Sudha Chitte Kare Udai. This is a very famous verse. One of the first verses we learn when we become devotees and start reading CC. It's just a beautiful verse. It's just so sweet. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. This is such a beautiful verse. It's all there within us. Everything is there within us. The whole spiritual kingdom is there within us. We have come from Krishna. We have come from the spiritual world. We are part and parcel of Krishna. And it is our natural constitutional position to be with Krishna, to be with Lord Chaitanya, to be with Lord Ram. Whatever incarnation of the Lord we are attached to, we all have our own individuality. Yad Yad Achar Tishre Stas, we are all individuals. That is a fact. Never was there a time when we did not exist, nor in the future shall all these kings cease to exist. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. We're all individuals. We're all individuals now. We always were individuals. We always will be individuals. So naturally, our heart, depending on our inclination, on our mood, we're inclined towards one aspect of Krishna's personality or another. There's so many stories where Prabhupada appears, we don't want to speculate, there's so many stories where Prabhupada appears to favor the Leela of the cowherd boys over the Leela of the gopis. There are other aspects where Prabhupada favors the Leela of the gopis over the cowherd boys, but his leaning appears to be towards that of the cowherd boys. So we are assuming that is his eternal relationship with Krishna. That's just, don't quote me on that. But that's the assumption that a lot of people have reached that conclusion. But that's Prabhupada. And someone else may be more inclined towards the servitude attitude, or the worship attitude, or different aspects of the personality of Godhead. Like we know that famous verse from the seventh canto, spoken by Prahlad actually. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaran Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanivedanam. So this is a famous verse from the seventh canto, and the translation is, Prahlad said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming a servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. So we can pick any one of these processes of devotional service. Any aspect of any one of these processes. Shravanam, hearing. Kirtanam, chanting. Vishnu, for Lord Vishnu, nobody else. Smaranam, remembering. Padasevanam, serving the feet. Archanam, offering worship, deity worship, with the 16 kinds of paraphernalia as described in Shastra. Vandanam, offering prayers. Dasyam, becoming the servant. Sakyam, becoming the best friend. So these are all available. Any one of them, or all of them, are available to any of us at any point in time. All we have to do is take the opportunity, whenever the opportunity arises, And the thing is, opportunities arise all the time. Excuse me a second. The the opportunities present themselves to us all the time. But the thing is, we have to be awake, we have to be aware, and we have to grab those opportunities wherever they present themselves to us and just hold on to them for dear life. We have come in touch with the most amazing philosophy on the planet, in the history of the planet. We're born at a time when the mercy of Lord Chaitanya is available to everybody. Lord Chaitanya appears once in a day of Brahma. Once. And here we are just 500 years away from the birth of Lord Chaitanya. It's like the blinking of an eye. It just happened yesterday that Lord Chaitanya was walking on the planet at the time of the Muslims who were controlling India at that time. And Lord Chaitanya was there. And we think that we're having a rough time. India was completely controlled by the Mughal emperors at that time. Still, in spite of all those obstacles, Mahaprabhu, he spread the mission and the glories of Lord Krishna everywhere he went. And not only that, but all his leading devotees were all ex-Muslims or Muslims directly, or converted to Islam and became Vaishnavas. Rupa Goswami was practically the prime minister of his day, and still he became a complete and total renunciant. Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, was a Muslim. So we have a background in our Sampradaya, Madhav Gaudiya Sampradaya, of almost 99% Muslims who became devotees and actually wrote these amazing literatures, spread the glories of Krishna everywhere in song, in dance, in kirtan. I mean, if you read the Goswami's literature, it's like unfathomable. It's so deep. These are coming from a Muslim background. But they got the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Just like Prabhupada, he went to the West and he said he just picked up these devotees wherever he went: San Francisco, New York, Boston, Los Angeles, London, Paris, Berlin, wherever Prabhupada went, he just went around picking people out of the material sphere and bringing them to the lotus feet of Krishna. This is the great good fortune that we were here. We were on the planet at the time of such a Mahabhagavat. It's inconceivable. We were walking on the planet at the same time as Prabhupada, or a few years after Prabhupada left, and we're here in his lifetime. I mean, this is like we don't even understand the smallest fraction of our great good fortune. And all of this, everything that Srila Prabhupada has given us, everything Mahaprabhu has given us, it is all there, latent, dormant within our hearts. Can you imagine? And Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu just come along with the key and open the door, and the flood of love of Godhead inundates the whole universe. Forget about this insignificant planet Earth. It inundates the whole universe for those who want. For those who want. And how do we get in touch with this? We simply have to desire it. Desire. It all comes from our desire. So our desire can go in the material direction, our desire can go in the spiritual direction, or our desire can be half-half. And most of us, for myself, I'm kind of half-half. Yes, I want to be a devotee, but I don't want to surrender everything, or I'll go this far and then, okay, I'll do that much for Krishna, but this much is for me. But that's madness. It's madness. It all ultimately comes down to the degree to which we want to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Pesham Satata Yuktanam. And what does Krishna say in the 15, 15? I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedas. I am the knower of the Vedas. I am seated in everyone's heart. From me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. From me. So if we want to forget Krishna, he will very happily fulfill our desires and cover us over, so we will forget him. Go off in our own direction, try to fulfill our need for a lack of anxiety in our own way, which is a material way, or we can try to remember Krishna. And if you take one step towards Krishna, Prabhupada says so many times, he takes 1,000,000 steps towards you. Krishna doesn't forget. In a lecture I heard from Prabhupada the other day, he was saying that whether you're a street sweeper, a devotee washing the floor, the toilet in the bathroom in the temple, or whether you're on the altar doing the deity worship, it's all service. It's all service. He was talking about Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami in his old age, he was living in Vrindavan, and complete and total renunciant. He had given up everything. He was penniless, poverty-stricken, and he didn't have anything to offer to his deity. Prabhupada said he used to keep his deity in a tree at night. He didn't even have a shelter for his deity. So as the monkeys wouldn't come and disturb him, he used to keep the deity in a tree hidden with leaves, so as it wouldn't be disturbed. And he had such a relationship with his deity that he used to talk to the deity. Prabhupada was describing how the deity came to him one day and said to him, the least you could do is put a little salt on the chapati that you're giving me. And Rupa Goswami said, well, where am I going to get salt? I'm penniless. I don't have anything. So do you think Krishna's depending on this salt-free chapati without butter or anything, not even a bit of sabji, nothing? Krishna's not depending on this. Krishna could have left the tree and gone off and lived in a luxurious temple that somebody else would have built for him somewhere, but he didn't. He stayed with Rupa. Why? Because Krishna's not dependent on the chapati. Krishna's dependent on the love that goes into the offering that we give. Patram pushpam palam toyam. Yome bhakcha. Bhakcha. This is the important aspect. Not the big opulent service that we can do. And that's great. That is wonderful. Somebody can build a temple for Krishna. Somebody can donate $1 million for Krishna. That is wonderful. But Krishna doesn't see the donation. Krishna sees the motivation, the desire, the love that goes into that donation. This is what Krishna wants. This is what Krishna can't live without. Just like we can't live without Krishna, Krishna can't live without love from us either. We are his separated parts and parcels, although we're not ultimately separated. But we don't reciprocate on the same level that Krishna wants to reciprocate with us. We are all the sons and daughters of Krishna. And we have to reunite that and connect with that and remember, again, become a member of the Krishna conscious fold and not remain in ignorance, because that's what we're doing. We are in ignorance. We're ignoring. Krishna's standing there right in front of us. We just ignore him. Completely don't even take any recognition. Imagine a great big personality walks into the room. The president comes to visit you in your house and you just ignore him. Or the prime minister or the king. So here's the Supreme Lord sitting in our heart. In our heart. And we just switch off. So we have to, at all costs, take advantage of this philosophy, dive into this wonderful, wonderful ocean of devotion that was there for all of us, and just take advantage of it. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. It naturally awakens. So we just have to churn it, just like you churn the butter, you churn the milk. And gradually, the butter comes out. This is what we have to do in our lives. And, not be like Duryodhan. Or is it... It's interesting how the purport, of course, is describing how, although Yamaraj is a big position, here's such an amazing personality like Vidura, and he also has a lesson to learn. He also has to understand his connection with Krishna. He's the Lord of death. He's the one who decides who goes up, who goes down, who goes in the middle, who goes here, who goes there, who goes to Nairobi, who goes to Mombasa. He's the decider. But yet he made this mistake. Mundaka Muni. And he was cursed. Imagine the Lord of Death that everybody fears, everybody goes to for their punishment or their reward, as the case may be. He is cursed by a simple Muni living in the forest, not even a kopan, nothing, innocently punished by the magistrate. Now, of course, the king, just in the nick of time, he saved himself and his kingdom by being completely torn to shreds by if that Muni had have been convicted and executed. But because the Muni was saved, he said, well, what's going on here? I didn't do anything. And then Yamaraj says, well, you pierced an insect in your childhood with a straw, and for that you have to suffer. There are two lessons here. For whatever we do, whatever negative things we do, we have to get the reward for that, for positive or negative. And whether it's positive or whether it's negative, it's all a curse. If we're rewarded with great wealth and opulence and fame and prestige and everything like that, that's also a curse. Karma, whether it's good or bad, it's all bad. So what we have to do, we have to try to become detached. Detached from this idea that I am this body. I am Irish, or I am British, or I am American, or I am Indian, or I'm Hindu, or Muslim, or Jew, or whatever. Just forget about all this stuff. It doesn't mean that we give up, our identity and we kind of completely renounce all affiliation with family, friends, and society. No, but we have to also understand that all these designations are temporary. They don't stay eternally. I'm eternal. You're eternal. We're all eternal. But the designation is temporary. But if we identify with the designation as being permanent, that's where we lose. That's where we lose sight of the goal. So Vidura, as Yamaraj, he thought, I'm the boss here. I control the whole situation. Not realizing that he has to use his intelligence also. Yes, there was a mistake on the part of the Muni. The Muni had to suffer for his mistake. Even as innocently as a child as he did. But at the same time, Yamaraj also had to understand that he also has to use some discretion. So we also have to use some discretion in our lives, not just blindly follow, oh, this one is doing this and this one is doing that, so I should also do the same. No. We also have to use our head. We're given intelligence, so we have to use that intelligence to gain the most from this particularly bad situation that we're in this body, in this country, at this particular point in time. We have to, as Prabhupada used to say, we have to make the best use of a bad bargain. And that's all we can do. And all we can do is try. We shouldn't be beating ourselves over the head with a stick. Oh, I'm not good enough, and I'm not this, and I'm not that, and I'm not up to this level, and I'm not up to that level, and look at that devotee is better than me, or whatever, or even worse, that devotee is worse than me. That's irrelevant. I cannot go back to Godhead on someone else's mistakes. I cannot go back to Godhead on somebody else's fall down or somebody else's elevation. That doesn't work. It's an individual thing that I do myself. I go back to Godhead on my own volition. I reconnect with Krishna on my own endeavor. Not because somebody else is less of a devotee than me or more of a devotee than me that I can take advantage of. Well, I'm okay. I'm in the middle, so I'll get there. No. It goes by the amount of endeavor that I make in my reconnection with Krishna as an individual living entity, as an individual spirit soul. This is what counts. Not somebody else being a big sannyasi or somebody being a small individual bhakta, or somebody goes away from Krishna consciousness. Oh, you see, that one went away, but look at me, I'm still here. I'm wonderful. So I'll go back to Godhead because of the fact that somebody else left? No, it doesn't work like that. It works on bhakta, the bhakti. If we have that bhakti, if we have that love, if we allow it to manifest, Prabhupada gives that example of the fire in the wood. The fire is in the wood even before you light it. That energy is there in the wood. But then when you light it, when you ignite it, then the energy gets a chance to manifest. When we reconnect with Krishna, then that love of Godhead is already there dormant in our heart. So we allow it to manifest. It's as simple as that. It's a very, very simple thing. This philosophy, all these books, they're wonderful. I read them all the time. I listen to Prabhupada every day, practically speaking. And it's so nice. But one thing I've noticed in listening, I've been listening to Prabhupada for a long time now, many, many years. Prabhupada's lectures are so simple. They're so simple. I'm just like amazed every time. Like at the end of the lecture, I've heard so much, I've taken in so much, and I've gone, wow, that was really deep stuff. And Prabhupada used the simplest words, the simplest sentences to communicate the deepest aspect of the highest philosophy in the universe. That's Prabhupada's secret. And it's our inheritance. So we should keep it that way. Keep the life simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't over-endeavor. Just go along in our own process of sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means what exactly? Step by step by step. And then there will come a point in time when say, wow, just like Vidura here. What is the verse? When he heard from Maitreya, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. That's why Prabhupada always says, read my books scrutinizingly. We have to scrutinize every single word. There's loads of meaning in every word. And so many times I read the verse, and I've read that verse a million times, and then I say, wow, how did I miss that? How did I miss that point? And then just boom, it just hits me. And then, of course, 5 minutes later, I've completely forgotten about that realization that goes out of my, because the head is empty. There's nothing there. That's why we have to keep at it. There has to be a daily. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadat nagatikutopi. We have to constantly endeavor for the mercy of the Guru, constantly. And just I traveled a lot with Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, especially when he came to Kenya. He came 3 or 4 years just before he left us. And he used to say to me, Vidhur Prabhu, this is a crying religion. It's a crying religion. We just constantly are crying for the mercy of the Guru. Please. I remember I picked him up from the airport in Kisumu, and he was explaining this crying religion. This was the first time I'd met him. And he was literally crying. The floods of tears were going on. I was driving the car and he was just crying. And I was like, I thought he was just going to give me some, deep example. He just started crying, boom, floods of tears. And as we were driving from the airport, there was this Mukokoteni, they were pulling, on Lake Victoria, Kisumu, they have this big fish factory and they send the fish to Japan. And the local people, they get the remnants of the offcuts from the bones and the heads that are not wanted by the fish factory. And they pull them along in the Mukokoteni from the factory on the lake into the market and people buy them. So I've already been living in Kenya for years at this point, and this was his first time in Kenya. We're driving along, this Mukokoteni is right beside us. The smell was like unbelievable, horrible smell. Anyway, he turns to me and says, Vidhur Prabhu, they killed the bull and they pulled the cart. I was like, wow, yeah, I never saw that before. They killed the bull and they pulled the cart. Instead of like getting the bull to pull the cart, they eat the bull and they pull the cart. I mean, it's just like, this is a devotee. He can see things that, we're looking at every day and we haven't got a clue what it's all about. The devotee, first time in Kenya, first time to see a Mukokoteni, straight away he sees the reality. Whereas me, dull, blind, completely blind. So we have to be engaged in this. I don't mean literally like Gaur Govinda Swami, imitating Gaur Govinda Swami and crying all day long, but we have to beg for the mercy of Krishna, beg for the mercy of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. And it's free. It's free. It's there for all of us. We just have to take advantage and go for it. So I read the verse again. Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidura received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. So when we desire, when we reach our level of understanding, and we reach the level where we're satisfied, and we reach the level where we understand, yes, this is what Vidura has understood. He's understood, yes, this is my connection. This is my relationship with Krishna. This is my original constitutional position. That's what it means when he has taken this knowledge from Maitreya. He's understood that this is my relationship. This is my eternal position in relationship to Krishna. Now all I have to do is live my life and go towards that goal. This is what we have to beg for, to understand what is my original, eternal, constitutional position in relationship to Krishna and develop it. And it's personal to me, and it's personal to you, it's personal to all of us as individuals. My relationship with Krishna is different from your relationship with Krishna, and that will always be the case. But we all have a relationship. That is the common denominating factor with all of us. I'll stop there and I'll ask if there are any questions or comments, please. Haribol.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Wonderful to hear King Vidura's pastimes from Vidura Das. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It was a pleasure for us to start with this chapter with you. We are all
Jai.
honored to Jai.
Thank you. It's my
Um,
great good fortune to be able to speak about Vidura. Jai.
Jai Prabhu. I was having this question that Duryodhana, people like Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, and these are evil personalities were in the Mahabharata, pastime. Is it also the supreme will of Krishna that these people were, because ultimately the war had to happen and the Bhagavad Gita was to be spoken. So is it part of Krishna's Leela also? These people are placed in these positions.
Yes, just like we know the famous story, the famous Leela of Lord Ram and Sita. It was Krishna's desire that Sita be kidnapped, and the whole. But who did who did Ram have in his army? Monkeys, bears. So who would think of such a thing? Bears and monkeys. This is your army. The only other one he had was Lakshman, the other human. All the rest were bears and monkeys. We think of Hanuman as a human. Hanuman was also a monkey. And, the whole monkey army, they're the ones who won the war. And I was listening to Prabhupada today. He was talking on the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. And he was saying, look at Prahlad Maharaj. He appeared in the family of demons. He addressed his father, O best of the demons, O best of the asuras. And his father became envious of him, because when he asked him, so what have you learned in school today? And he recited this verse that we just quoted, Shravanam Kirtanam. And the father went absolutely ballistic. Where are these teachers? What are these teachers teaching? And what about Narada Muni? Narada Muni, the same thing. Son of a maidservant. Where did he hear all this? And he is Vyasadev's guru. I mean, these things are just inconceivable, absolutely inconceivable. But where do we get all these? Is it the will of Krishna? Yes, ultimately. We may not see the big picture, just like I've given this example previously. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. We may see like an ant walking across the floor, and the ant, we can see where the ant came from, we can see where the ant is now, and we can see the direction that the ant is going. So from one point of view, from our position, we're Tri Kalagyan as far as the ant is concerned, because we can see, the past, the present, and the future of the ant, right? So imagine the point of view of the demigods, or the point of view of the inhabitants of Goloka Vrindavan. From their point of view, what way do they see it? So we don't necessarily get the whole picture, nor do we need to. We don't need to we don't need to pine about it, putting ourselves in that position. We just need to go along as best as we can, do our daily puja, do our daily japa, most important, and engage as best as we can, particularly in spreading the glories of the holy name to others. This is the most important bit. Don't just keep it for ourselves. It's a storehouse of knowledge. Break it open, distribute it. We will get unlimited mercy. The more we speak, the more we communicate with others, not forcing it down people's throats. We will find our own way to talk. We will all talk in our own individual way, and we'll communicate it in our own individual way. What's the best way to do it? Maybe a kind gesture, maybe give somebody a little prasadam, whatever it might be. Give somebody a flower from the temple or whatever. Offer condolences to somebody who's grieving. There's just so many ways of communicating. We don't necessarily have to go around quoting shlokas 24 hours a day. But the main thing is that we should try our best to communicate what we have learned in our own words to others. And this is the ultimate benefit. This is where the real nectar is, in being able to speak about Krishna or act in the service of Krishna in one way or another by doing some seva. So I don't know if that answers your question, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Very much, very much. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Yes, are there any other questions or comments? We have about 5 minutes left.
Welcome back, Kirtika. Well done. Congratulations. Jai. All glories to your travels, all glories to your safari. I hope you brought a ton of dust back with you, because I'm definitely expecting at least a half a kilo when I get to Kenya next time. And if you didn't bring a half a kilo, you have to go back tomorrow and bring it back again.
I will do that again. I will get another kilo. But yes,
No.
I have got some dust. And
Well done.
thank you very much, Fuji, for all your blessings. And because of that, I have been able to do this yatra.
Wonderful.
It was a
Wonderful.
fantastic experience we can share one day.
Jai.
Prabhuji,
Very well.
can you please tell us something about Maitreya Muni, Sage Maitreya?
Maitreya was, well, Prabhupada, there are some places where Prabhupada said, interestingly enough, he wasn't on the highest platform. He was a very, very elevated, a very advanced devotee. And Vidura, on his travels, Maitreya was also a wandering mendicant. Maitreya, he engaged with so many elevated personalities. He had amazing conversations with Uddhava also. And they always exchange in discussions about the pastimes of the Lord with each other. So Vidura, he inquired from Maitreya, so what is the goal of life? That's another section of the Bhagavatam, which we will come to. And that conversation, it would be absolutely amazing when we get to that point. The philosophical questions posed by Vidura and the answers given by Maitreya are really amazing stuff. And again, very simple, very, very simple, and very basic, down-to-earth questions. So the whole conversation is the sages of Naimisharanya. Sutta Goswami is speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, and they have heard from, of course, Shukadeva Goswami and the conversation between Sukadeva and Maharaj Parikshit. And Maitreya was a part of the whole sages, and he was participating with the sages in Naimisharanya. So he heard from Sutta. Sutta heard from Maharaj Parikshit's conversation with Sukadeva Goswami, and then they went around they went around glorifying the Lord in this way. And whoever they came across, like we were discussing with each other, and Vidura was asking, Vidura, of course, knew this is an elevated devotee. I'm a Kshatriya, you're a renunciant. What's this? What's that? What's the other? Maitreya imparted his knowledge to him. But Prabhupada says in a few places, Vidura was on a slightly higher level than Maitreya. So it's an interesting relationship, because Vidura had direct contact with Krishna. Maitreya didn't. Maitreya heard through hearing. He became a very advanced pure devotee. But Vidura had direct contact with Krishna. And as we know, Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, but still he inquired from his spiritual master, Ishvara. And in this way, you know, the whole disciplic succession is passed down from one to the other. So Maitreya's story is that he was one of the sages who heard, and then he passed on his knowledge to Vidura and others. And a wonderful discussion, which will be coming up in a few chapters. Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. We look forward to that as well.
Jai.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for your
Likewise. Jai. Haribol.
assistance.
I think our time is up now. Is that right? Is there any more questions? Any more comments?
If there are no more questions or comments, we can end this session. Are you
Okay.
going to?
Yes, yes. I can see Urmila Ben's hand raising. Is that a question, Mataji?
No,
Okay.
thank
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for your wonderful association and then beginning this wonderful chapter of Vidura's pastime with Dhritarashtra. And we'll hope to continue this journey, and with your association, we'll continue it wonderfully. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Jai. Haribol.
I request all the devotees to unmute and then chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra once in glorification of His Grace Vidhur Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyaeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo
namo namaha. Srila
Srila
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
Ji Jai.
Jai.
Very Haribol.
His Grace Vidhura Prabhu Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Haribol.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Happy Gaura Purnima in advance, Prabhuji. Happy Gaura Purnima in advance.
Purnim Jai. Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Haribol.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Arya Govind Prabhu.
Thank
Hare
you,
Krishna,
Mataji.
Kirtika Ben.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.